Welcome back to our Global iTech Solution Kits Postman channel on lecture 01. Before you started this lecture, I highly encourage you to complete previous lecture related with this course. Let's get started and jump on the topics. So today we'll be discussing about GET request, status code validation, key value validation from the response body, schema validation from the response body. So this is a mandatory assertions. Now let's get started. So with our previous request, so this is our previous request, and this request name can be let's put the meaningful name. Let's say list of users, because as you see on the bottom side, it is returning list of users. Now we'll be validating the status code from the response, right? So this is our until in, this is a service endpoint, then the API, this is your service resource endpoint, the users is our parameters or arguments. Once I send the request, I get response in a JSON format, because JSON started with the curly brace and ending with the curly brace. So that's when this is a JSON format. Also you can see as a JSON on the drop down, right? Now let's go ahead and write some assertion test, validation test. On the Postman, there is a test tab. If you clicked on that, you can add snippet from the right hand side. There is a test validation snippet. You can use it. So for the status code, I can use the response time less than status code. There is a status code validation. pm.test status code is 200. So this is our test name, test case name. PM meaning as a postman dot test. So started with the test. So in the later lecture, we'll be customizing our test in a like the optimization format. But for now, let's use from the snippet. So we create a functions. Then inside the functions, we just send pm.response to have status code 200. If I send the request, save it and send. So on the test results, on the response, you see the one test pass. Status code is 200. Now, if you put over here validate, validate status code is 200, send request, you see the validate status code is 200. Right? Now, also you can use many of them, right? But the another one you have to use the it takes less than like the SLA, which is meanings the SLA meaning is a service level agreement defined by the product. How much time it will take sending the request and responding by the server in between sending and like the sending the request and responding from the server in between time, how long it will take basically. So let's say I'm going to be validated, it takes below 200 milliseconds. Let's save it and run it. So both of them are passed. Let's put over here SLA and response. So both tests are passed, right? So this is the number 2. Now the number 3 is a key value validation. So key value validation, how do we do that key value validation? So we could do that, like the same way we are doing here. Let's go ahead. I do have a pre-snippet code over here. I already used it. So let me use it for here for our purpose. Let's go ahead, copy and paste. pm.test page equal 2. So inside the body, you see the page equal 1. We'll be using page equal 1, per page 6. Then so we'll be using as a 1 and the per page 6. So that's been expect response JSON page 2 equal 1 and per page 2 equals 6. So this is what we'll be validating from the response body. Let's say any things you have static value, key value here, you have to assert that into it. So now you see the 3 of them pass. Now the last piece will be testing the schema. So what is the schema? Schema are nothing, just a data structure. So over here you see that on the response, page equal 1, per page equal 6, value can be changed anytime, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So those are the integer data type, right? So integer data type, but what if like instead of integer we can put characters? Is that going to be working? I don't know. So that's why we have to validate the structure of the code. So now let's go ahead and copy the JSON response and we'll convert into our schema. How do we do that? So there is a JSON schema.net. You can use it, JSON schema.net, and you can paste your JSON, valid JSON on the left hand side, which is you've got response, right? And click on submit. Once you click on submit, it will convert it into a schema. So this is the entire schema. Now you can put the schema over here in your test. This is our schema. Now that schema you will be assigning into a variable. Then we can call that variable, basically, nothing else. So let's say this one will be called as a variable schema equal, right? So this is our schema, and on that schema, the first line, this is just a link of the schema. We don't need them. Now this is our variable of schema. Now we have to validate this is the exact schema. Once we have the response, it matches with the structure, data structure. Now how do we do that? So it's pretty basic and simple. In the code, after the schema variable, we can just call that schema variable pm.test validate schema, then pm.response to help JSON schema. Basically, this schema came from as a variable, which is we declare the variable on the up. Now, if you send the request, if the test is pass, that's been pass. You see that all of them pass. The test validates schema. Now, validate schema JSON data structure. JSON's response data structure. Data format. That's it. Right? So in this, let's say this format, this data structure or data format, you change a little bit. Change from, let's say right now you have a page, per page, total page, data, support, everything is validated. Let's say over here, instead of integer, it's a null value, right? Save it and send it. Let's say it is failing or not. Yeah, there you go. Test is failing. So that's mean if anything happen with the data format, the test will be failed. Integer. Now test is pass. So that means schema has to be validated. Number 1. Number 2, status code has to be validated. Number 3, response time has to be validated. This is 3 validation has to be done in your API testing. Either way, you are testing manually using Postman or automatically using writing the code. This is all you have for today. Thank you so much for watching this lecture. Stay tuned for upcoming lecture for the rest of this course.